This story was submitted by a listener. Names have been changed. Jessica's life had always been framed by the sound of other people's doors closing, not metaphorically, literally. She knew what it was like to watch a moving truck back out of a driveway and realise your family was leaving a place that you'd barely begun to feel was a home. She remembered the echo of footsteps in empty rooms, the hurried scraping of boxes, the last-minute decisions about what to carry and what to leave. Rent notices folded into bills, folded into whispered conversations in the kitchen late at night. I will not be moved like this forever, she used to think as a teenager, tracing imaginary borders around rooms she wished were hers. So, she worked. She married the habit of grit and tiny stubborn rituals of thrift, clipping coupons, taking lunches to work, turning down invites she secretly wanted to accept. She took a second job when the landlord hiked the rent on her share of the apartment. Tyler, her steady practical partner, matched her moves. They were not glamorous savers, they were disciplined. They sat at the kitchen table on Sunday nights and went over their already tight budget. They planned by the inch. Welcome to Luredinyt, where we tell scam stories our listeners have fallen for. Please like and subscribe for regular uploads. When they found the house, a modest 3-bedroom on a tree-lined street, it almost felt too good to be true. It had a yard that caught the afternoon sun, a small porch that would fit 2 chairs, a kitchen window that faced some lovely trees. They imagined a dog, maybe one day a child. They imagined not having to answer to a landlord's notice, not having to pot up memories when a weekend turned into a move. The weeks blurred as there were inspections, lender emails, small victories and long waits. Every step was a notch closer to proof. Their name on a mortgage document, their initials on a clause. They were careful. Jessica, who'd learned to mistrust anything that sounded too easy, triple-checked all documents. She kept a folder with copies of every email and contract. She printed numbers and stored them. She read fine print like it was scripture, and she was at Bible study. Closing day sat heavy on the calendar like a promise, red circle, bold letters. The last little logistics felt almost sacred. They'd made it this far. The closing wasn't supposed to be a rush. It was the reward, the quiet moment where finally, after years of contained hope, the future was theirs. And then the email arrived. At a glance, it was what they expected. Clean header, professional signature, lines of text that felt like homework, returned and graded. Then the email arrived. At a glance, it was what they expected. Clean header, professional signature, and lines of text. It said plainly, closing is ready. Please transfer the closing costs immediately. It included the transfer details. It included the company's name. It signed off with the name of somebody that Jessica recognised. If she had a weakness, it was her habit of trusting patterns that she'd come to know. She read the email twice. She showed Tyler. This is it, she said, and laughed, partly from disbelief and partly from relief. They'd saved for years. The number made her stomach clip. $38,000. It was huge, a real life-changing amount, but she could feel it was the culmination of every small refusal and every second job. She felt proud. At 11:30 a.m, she sat at the kitchen table, steady fingers, and confirmed the transfer. Her chest loosened, letting out that first long breath after her fight had ended. Tyler ordered the first takeout they'd had in 2 years and ate it like it was a victory feast. Jessica texted her mother. It's done. Money sent. Her mom fired off heart emojis and sent congratulatory messages. For the 2 hours after the day shimmered, she pulled up the listing on the house, showing Tyler which chair would go where, laughed at the ridiculous idea of painting the spare in pink, and turned over the small practicalities in her head. Coordinating movers, changing addresses, the first night sleeping with boxes around the bed. At 1:30 p.m, the phone rang. The agent's name lit the screen. She picked up, expecting a quick congratulations. Hey Jessica, the agent said, cheery and professional. Just checking in. Do you know when you'll be able to make the transfer for closing? Jessica blinked. A little irritation pricked at the corners of her delight. It's in your account, she said. Matter of fact and certain. She didn't hesitate. She knew logically and emotionally that she'd done everything the right way. It's in your account, she said, as if saying it would anchor the truth. On the other end of the line was a long silence, the kind that makes you notice the tick of a clock. No, it isn't, the agent said at last, voice tightening. We haven't received anything. Where did you send it? Jessica felt a sudden disconnect between the world she trusted and the world the voice described. To the details you sent this morning, she replied. To the email instructions. Another pause. Jessica, I'm looking at the account. The money isn't there. It was like somebody had pulled the floor from under her. She opened the email again. The header looked right, the formatting was correct, the signature bore the familiar name, but the address was just different enough. A character swapped, a dot missing, to fool the naked eye. The account numbers were not the company's. Every tiny detail that had seemed right now read as a lie. Her mouth went dry. She stared at the screen with the sensation that she had been punched somewhere behind the ribs. "Oh my God," she whispered into the phone. "The money's gone." From there, the day fractured into a montage of emergency calls, bureaucratic forms, and squeezed anger. Jessica and Tyler called their bank first. The voice on the other end explained with gentle professionalism and an undertone of regret that once the transfer clears to an external account, the bank's options were very limited. A recall could be requested, but if the funds had already been withdrawn from the receiving account, the odds dropped dramatically. They filed a police report, hands trembling as they read out numbers like an incantation meant to reverse the damage. They opened a complaint with the FBI's IC3 portal, clicking through forms and attaching screenshots and emails. It felt like they were building a paper trail for somebody else's future courtroom drama. A bank investigator called back and gently set expectations. Sometimes in rare cases, funds could be recovered if the banks acted instantly, or if the scammers' accounts were still holding the money. But the time was their enemy. Those hours between 11:30 and 1:30 had been enough. The bank's words were technically precise and personally devastating. Night closed in. The apartment where they celebrated a little victory in the afternoon now felt like a prison cell. Boxes stood in clusters like silent witnesses to plans that had been made and then ripped open. Tyler sat with his head in his hands for a long minute and then reached for Jessica's fingers. He reassured Jessica they'd get through this. Not as a solution, but as an attempt to tether them both to some sense of stability. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the fight she'd been engaged in since she was a child wouldn't end on a petty email gone wrong. But the ache of loss was not only financial, it was moral. Now that illusion felt painfully naive. What happened to Jessica and Tyler is not a rare fluke or a victim's failing. It's a methodical, sophisticated scam that's become devastatingly common in real estate transactions. Scammers engage in what's known as business email compromise or real estate wire fraud. Leave a comment if you've heard of these real estate closing scams before. The mechanics vary, but the pattern is similar. Scammers hack into email accounts and identify transactions that are near closing and begin to monitor communication threads. Often by compromising an email at a law firm or real estate office, or by closely spoofing these accounts. They don't hit immediately. They read old emails, learn the tone, the specific phrases, the typical formatting. They wait until the exact moment the transfer is likely, and then intercept the legitimate emails by having access to the company's system and send an email that uses forged sender details. It's engineered to look exactly like the final instructions would. The email instructs the buyer to transfer to a bank account that is controlled by the scammers. The transfers are routed quickly and often funds are split and moved across multiple accounts and jurisdictions within minutes. The fraud relies on a tight window when buyers are nervous and eager to close. The scammer's advantage is speed. Get the money before anyone detects the deception. Once funds are distributed to cash out accounts, especially if moved overseas or into cryptocurrency, tracing and recovering becomes exponentially more complex. This is why even careful, skeptical people fall victim. The email looks exactly right. It arrives at the moment when you're expecting it, and the pressure to act quickly is intense. If you find yourself in Jessica's shoes, here are the practical, concrete steps to take and why they matter. Call your bank now, ask for the fraud team and request an immediate recall or trace of the transfer. The faster a bank acts, the better a chance they can stop outgoing funds or flag the recipient account. Be firm and persistent. File an IC3 complaint with the FBI. The FBI aggregate these reports and has mechanisms to collaborate with financial institutions and foreign partners. Early reporting helps to create a trace. File a local police report. This gives you an official record that banks and insurers may require. Notify your realtor and title company immediately. Tell them that the email was fraudulent and forward the fake message. Their systems may have been compromised and other clients might be at risk. They need to know so they can notify others and tighten security. Contact the receiving bank if you can identify it. You can ask the bank for the routing and account details that received the funds. Sometimes the receiving bank can freeze an account if it's still intact. Keeping every scrap of communication, screenshots, emails, transaction confirmations will help with this. These will be necessary for investigations, insurers, and lawyers. Legal advice is important for understanding civil recovery options, and don't isolate. The chain can be overwhelming. Talk to family, friends, a counsellor. Practical help and emotional support matter. Learn and share. Sharing the story can help others. Scammers rely on silence. The technical steps are essential, but so is the human story. For Jessica, the loss felt like a betrayal, not only of money, but of identity. She had always seen herself as the careful one, the one who read the fine print, who double-checked the numbers, who kept the receipts. To fall for this felt like failing at the most basic level. Shame settled in like a second coat of cold. She found herself imagining every judgmental look that might come, how people might whisper. How did she miss that? And that fought her as badly as the missing $38,000. But she also found something surprising. People rallied, friends donated small amounts to tide them over. Tyler's mom cooked dinners and left them with the pair. A neighbour offered storage space for boxes. People reached out with advice, with leads for lawyers, with emotional solidarity. The community's responses were a small repairs against a big tear. Jessica did something else that surprised her. She told strangers online. She submitted this story to a forum because she wanted the shame to be shared among many voices instead of worn alone. She wanted others to be on guard. She wanted the scammers to lose the cover of silence. She since shared it with us and graciously answered further questions to help build context and tell this story to warn others. And slowly a different feeling took root, not naive optimism, but a stubborn practical resolve that had been the backbone of her life. She would rebuild, she would resave. This was a roadblock, not the end of the road. The dream of owning a home remained, altered but not extinguished. To help prevent the same happening to you or a loved one, here's a short checklist you can use before you transfer funds. Confirm transfer details by phone using a number you already have for the company or agent. Don't use phone numbers listed in emails you receive. Be suspicious of any last-minute changes. If account details change last minute, pick up the phone and verify directly. Use secure portals if available. Some companies provide secure online portals rather than emails for wiring instructions. Depending on the transaction, other settlement methods may be safer than immediate bank transfers. Train yourself to look for tiny differences. Spoofed emails can be nearly identical, so look for subtle inconsistencies. Stray characters, different domains, or odd phrasing, and ask your title company about their security practices. If they don't have two-factor authentication on emails or secure portals, push them to improve. This is not a story about blame or about somebody being careless. It's a story about how professional, patient criminals exploit the procedures we trust. It's about a particular kind of vulnerability that shows right up when joy and urgency meet. Jessica's story is a warning and a call to action. Tell your friends, ask your agent how secure their communications are. If you're going through closing, insist on verbal confirmation of any transfer details. If you think you've been scammed, act fast and create as many official records as you can. Jessica lost $38,000 that day, but she lost more than money. For a while she lost faith in the carefulness that she held as a shield. But she didn't lose everything. She kept her resolve and kept her voice. She turned the worst day into a lesson for many. If you're listening and you've been through this, share your experience. If you're about to transfer funds, stop, call, confirm. If you're a title company or realtor, make sure that your security is a priority.